Hey, good people. Welcome back to another podcast episode with Sit Down Hawaii. I'm Josh, your host, and I'm excited that you're here. Listen, we are a podcast that discuss pressing issues and questions with people who have answers. And as you know, right now, we are in the election season. So it is pressing to talk to people in election season. Today, my guest represents district or wants to represent District 22, and that's a district where it encompasses Manoa. And so I want to make it really clear, we're not a political podcast. We're a podcast that talk about issues. But right now, it's really important that you get out and you vote because that's your voice and that's your right. So today, our guest is going to be Jeffrey Imamura. Did I say that correct?
Yeah, you did. That's great.
Jeff, thank you so much for joining.
Right on. Thank you for having me.
Oh, man. When I saw your name come through, I was like, okay, Manoa. I know nothing about Manoa, but it's beautiful. That I love the coffee shop there. University of Hawaii's there.
Yeah.
Absolutely. You know, if you're here and you're listening to this, I hope that you share this, you know, that you have friends, family, anybody in the district, because I think it's going to be a good time to get to know Jeff. I do want you to know that we sent an email out to Andrew Garrett as well. So we did this thing where we sent out an email to everyone. It was the incumbent, the challenger, and, you know, Jeff got back pretty quickly. It was something that we knew we wanted to do. We did ask Andrew. I think he's really busy, but he couldn't make it. So we're excited to just dive deep into what you have to offer. We have 3 rules here, and I kind of vetted you before. I was like, hey, here's our rules. Let's go through this. So the first rule here at Sit Down Hawaii is respect. Even though Andrew's not here and you don't need to agree with everything he said or have done, we're going to treat him with respect and respect towards everyone. Second is we're going to make this about you, about the people of Manoa. So if he wants to talk about Elon Musk and going into outer space or, you know, whatever it may be, quantum physics, I'm going to bring it back to you. So it's going to be about Manoa today. And third is we're going to have some fun. I'm going to force you. We're going to have some fun. No, it's going to be a good time. And so let's just start off with who you are, where you're from, and why you're running.
Sure. Local boy, born and raised. I'm actually from the Kailua side. And then I grew up at my grandma's house in Nu'uanu. So I'm pretty much a townie from then on.
Yeah.
You know, typical local public school education. So Kuana Nakoa. I'm a Roosevelt grad.
With Bruno Mars, come on.
Yeah. We're actually I think he's 1 year younger than me.
Really?
Yeah, so we're at school at the same time.
Oh my gosh.
I'm pretty sure that's right.
What about Romeo Valentine? You know Romeo?
No.
Oh man, he has another podcast that we shoot. That guy's awesome.
Yeah.
Big ups to Roosevelt.
And then UH, Manoa, majored in music, and then the rest is history. Started teaching.
Wow.
My first teaching gig was at Pro City High School.
Oh wow.
And then situations changed in life, and then I ended up at Ke'ilio Kalani Middle School, formerly Central Middle School. I know it's kind of tricky because I tell people the new name, and they're like, what?
Yeah.
So I just got to clarify, it's formerly Central.
Got you.
So.
Awesome. And why are you running? What stirred the pot for you?
I think a lot of it was just seeing the discrepancy of what is and isn't allowed, or the haves and the have-nots kind of a deal, especially during, I got really into politics in 2015, 2016, right around the key, you know, the election that changed the country kind of a thing. And from then on, it's just been following, you know, nationwide politics. And then it came down to more, okay, locally, what's happening here? Because I don't think that, you know, even at the time, I didn't know enough about local politics, and I didn't know enough about, you know, the language of laws being written or the policy and what this means to interpret a certain bill or anything like that. So from then on, it was just, okay, maybe there's a shot to help change Hawaii or help bring balance back to the state, because we've been, you know, one party for a very long time, and without hearing contrary voices or, you know, different opinions, we don't really get clarity. And so I kind of want to be in here to, you know, uphold values, and at the same time to offer that, you know, back and forth, because that's where ideas really come from.
Got you. Yeah, I think that's where it's maybe you've done this before. That was a perfect segue to our section, our talk story session. So basically, what we do is we pull up 5 facts that are all about Manoa, and we just have a conversation around them. Um, one thing that's super apparent is that there's this idea that you live in Manoa, everything is perfect. I'm just telling you, this is the West Side's view, right? Oh, Manoa, gorgeous, and um, you know. The more that I do research on this, and the more that I've kind of spent some time looking at what you've done and where you're going and what you're thinking about, and then where Manoa's at, um, there's a lot of rich history, a lot of rich culture, um, and then there's some things that need to be fixed and
Right.
changed, just like any other part of Hawaii, right? So let's jump right in. Our first topic is going to be about affordable housing. So the median home price in Manoa is now over $1.5 million, making it one of the most expensive residential areas in Oahu. So the question is, how do you plan to address this and ensure that residents can afford to stay in your community?
Right. That's a great question, and I know affordable housing is just not just Manoa, but everywhere.
Yeah.
You know, for my family, we would love to, you know, own a home, no matter where, but 1.5, 1.7, it just, it's a lot,
Yeah.
right? And so even in Manoa, Manoa is known for greenery, known for the valley, known
Yeah.
for a quiet neighborhood, which is
Hmm.
unique because Manoa is very detached and separated from a major thoroughfare or anything like that. So prime real estate is important in Manoa, but at the same time too, we have to face modernity in a way because there isn't going to be much space for the demand that's already there. So, it's talking to the community and figuring out where are people comfortable with maybe a new house here and there. They're um, recently they were talking about things like the Banyan Court, affordable housing for seniors that met with a lot of pushback because of where it was going to be. It was going to be right near the old Chinese cemetery, and they're going to prop it all up. And people were concerned, traffic, just where's everybody going to fit. And more recently, they were talking about Aria Lane. Aria Lane is also the new development that's going to come up, and they said we're going to have parking, we're going to have space, we're going to have all these things, but the people of Manoa are still super concerned. Like, there's no space; it's too many people, and so I think it has to be a balance of, we want families to live and stay in Hawaii. We want Manoa to be special. So it's a lot of figuring out, okay, if we were to build one or two new houses here and there, is that feasible for the community? Is that workable for the community? And, I think going forward from there, because it's inevitable that we're going to need places. And
Yeah.
yeah.
From a legislation standpoint, but what in your mind do you think you'd propose or that you'd be for when it comes to fighting for affordable income? I mean, affordable housing, and is that even something that's doable for Manoa? Like, yeah,
To the first question, I think yes. I think last legislative session, Brenton Awa actually proposed a bill that said that you had to be a resident and proof of residency for a certain amount of time in order for you to purchase land or to purchase a home. And I think, following that same idea where if we could get more local people in, you know, then it stays, you want the community to stay the same. You don't want, other people to come in and change the demographic or change the feel of that community. So I think that part of the legislation is good. I also think that, helping to it's expensive. So we got to figure out a way to lower cost of building materials. We got to lower the
mm,
cost of transporting goods in order to build houses, in order to build more things, in order to make it accessible. And sometimes that might even mean looking at restructuring the infrastructure that exists in Manoa already. Maybe streets need to be adjusted, maybe lanes need to be wider or smaller within reason, right? Within reason. But I think we can do more that allows local people to stay.
yeah, Yeah, it just seems like this is an issue across the board. It's just not a Manoa thing; it's a Hawaii thing. You hate to see people leave if they want to stay. It's another thing if they want to leave, then
Yeah.
you
Right,
know
right, right.
it's good. But if you're trying to stay and you can't afford it, that's where things get a little difficult. I want to move us over to public safety. So, public safety has been a concern in Manoa, and this is specifically regarding property crime, increased vehicle break ins. Um, we know that, or according to um, reports of property crime and break ins, they've risen by 10% in the past year. So, what steps would you take to reduce crime and improve safety in your neighborhood?
Sure. I love this question because I'm a big advocate in personal safety. And so I strongly believe that you should be able to stand your ground. And right now in Hawaii, we don't have that. We don't have a set law that says that you have the right to protect your property. You have the right to protect yourself and your family. And I think that equipping people to be protectors and not victims is one of the best ways that we're going to reduce that kind of crime and property crime and break-ins and all this kind of stuff in not just in Manoa but everywhere. You know, I don't like hearing that, oh, I couldn't do anything about it. But that's not true. I think that if we equip the people, they're going to feel safer. They're going to feel more confident to, you know, step up because everyone's afraid of the consequences, right? And nobody wants to hurt another individual. Nobody wants to do that kind of thing. But when push comes to shove and somebody's going to come after your property or worse, you got to have that confidence to say, I'm going to fight back.
What does that look like for you? We've had guests and we've heard the whole spectrum. What when you say letting people be able to fight for themselves or stand their ground in your words, how far are you willing to go? What does that look like? And in an ideal world or situation, what would that be for you?
Um, in an ideal situation, actions have consequences and deterrents are a real thing that exists. And right now, we don't have those deterrents. Right now, there's nothing to stop a criminal from coming into somebody's home. But if you had a tool, or, let's just be honest, if you had a weapon,
Hmm.
something to defend yourself and your property, chances are they're going to think twice. And again, I'm not advocating violence. I'm not advocating that, you know, we should just go wild, wild west and start
Hmm.
firing off all these things. But ideally, somebody's trying to break into your property and you can prove that they're in your property, right? They're in your garage, they're
Right.
in your fence line, and you come out there with a weapon and you say, hey, get away from my property. And then they leave. Okay. If they decide like, oh, it's worth it to go after you, or then okay, right? You
Yeah.
have to we have to be ready. And even for myself too, like I got a family, I got a wife and a kid. I have to mentally be prepared as well to defend them and whatever steps necessary. And I think,
Yeah.
Manoa is special. Manoa, everybody knows everybody. It's a small community, and we should hurt when other people become victims, and we should step up to protect them as well.
I was going to ask you about that. So, because you're in the community and that, this is your community, just give me a gauge of what you're finding and what people are saying and what are some things that you're like, "Hey, I know my neighbors or and these are issues that they find that they want to talk about."
Yeah, it's a lot of just what more can we do, or what else is there as a means to stop or prevent something from happening in their community. Like a lot of it is just prevention, prevention, prevention. But people are getting a little bit frustrated, a little bit irritated, a little bit like,
Mhm.
you know, we did all the steps that people told us to do, and it's still not working. And so, you know, it's reaching a tipping point for some people. Other people are just really fed up, and that's unfortunate because again, like this is Hawaii. We have a special culture in the state alone to be neighborly, to show that aloha spirit, and so
Mhm.
it's tough for people to come to that point of like absolute frustration sometimes.
I wonder, and I've brought this up on other podcasts that I grew up in a small town, and we knew the policemen like by name,
Right.
and they knew us whether we were good or a little bit crazy. But there was this sense that we were pretty close.
Mhm.
and you knew that the policemen, at least I can grow up in the late '80s, early '90s, policemen were good, you know, and they were there to protect us, and there was some sense of stability there.
Mhm.
Um, have you seen that change? Do you know the police officers around? And how does that operate in Manoa? Do you have your own precinct, or is it shared amongst others, or what does that look like?
I'm pretty sure we don't have like a set precinct in Manoa, so we just pull from the closest station. Um, but yeah, I think having a stronger presence, I guess you could say, in the community. I'm sure we've got police officers living up in Manoa anyway, and they
Hmm.
know, I'm sure they hear it from their neighbors. Hey, you didn't bust so and so, you know. It's like one of those things, and so,
Right.
you know, I love HPD. I support the cops 100%. You know, do they make mistakes? Sure, right, but we all do.
Mm.
But I want them to know that I support them. Even more so too, I want to free up officers to be out in Manoa to just help with neighborhood watch or help patrol in a certain area that we know is just busy with people, or at night, and the neighbors know, the community knows there are certain spots and certain streets where somebody always comes through, like,
Mm.
but I think reestablishing and building that relationship back up with HPD is super important. And they're not the bad guys. They're 100% not the bad guys. But, we got to invite them to come back in, and we got to help them out too, I think.
Yeah. Manoa strikes me. It's interesting because you've got like this really young buzz with University of Hawaii right there,
Right.
right? And like you can just like feel the pulse, right? It's like, oh my goodness, this is like exciting, and you've got academia and people are like really putting their best efforts forward there, and people from all over the world, really going to University of Hawaii, and then you could drive 5 minutes more inland, and it's just this close knit community of people. I swear have been there forever, right? And that balance is kind of interesting. It's going to lead me to my next question, but have you felt that? Like, what are your thoughts around that? And I just want to get your take on just the University of Hawaii being in the Manoa community, and good, bad questions. Like, what does that look like?
I think in like the day to day, it's probably just neutral. You know,
Mm.
uh, Manoa, the way that it's been designed and the way that it's been built, right? All the houses in the residential areas is up in the valley. And
Mm.
then as closer you get into town, you got schools like Marino, you got Punahou, you got Midpack, you got
Right.
UH, you've got, um, you know, elementary schools. You've even got as far down as places like Roosevelt, right? And all
Mm.
of that is just kind of knit together. And for people in Manoa, they don't really feel the impact too much, except in general between 6 and 8 o'clock in the morning and 3 to 6 at night. But I think it's separated enough. Like the university is separated enough from the rest of the community, because when I think Manoa, I think up in the valley more so than where UH is, and I think that's where we live in our two separate bubbles, so to speak. And
Mm.
there's an exchange here and there for UH, and we
Yeah.
always, part of the whole alma mater for UH is talking about being in Manoa, so
Right.
it's that tie-in. And but I just, yeah, there's not. I can't think of a tug and a pull between UH and the rest of Manoa too much.
Yeah.
But I'm sure. I mean, people who live like right in the area, I'm sure. Like,
Yeah, I have so one of the questions that we have is pretty much around that, right? University of Hawaii is vital to the Manoa community. Its growth is growing, right? So there's an uh, increase in enrollment, but then there's also the needs of the local residents. So there's things that's being built, it seems, and so I guess the question is, how do you balance the needs of the university with the needs of the local resident? I think you touched a little on that, but is there anything that we're missing here? Is there anything that we need to address when it comes to, the university in Manoa?
yeah, I was just at the Manoa neighborhood board meeting, and one of the residents brought up this whole issue about um, the lane that he lives on, and very specifically like the parking situation that happens because Manoa's got wide streets for the most part,
Mm.
and so people obviously find street parking, and so one of the concerns is that because of the amount of students at UH, they're taking up parking on the street.
Oh
That's
yeah.
unfortunately for this resident, like it's blocking his driveway at
Oh
times, and so I can see the concern, and especially for one of the biggest things for Manoa is the traffic. There's two roads in, and that's it, right?
yeah.
And if one of them goes down, well, we're kind of cooked.
Right.
So
Right.
I think part of it for the university is finding that kind of balance where you know how can we help students who attend UH stay at UH in a way, or keep their vehicles at UH to help free up
Mhm.
the neighborhood itself, because the neighborhood is carrying a burden that maybe they shouldn't
Mm.
at times, and I understand. I went to UH, so I get it, man. If you're not in that parking structure by like, 7:30, you've got no parking, and so there's
Right.
no choice but to look elsewhere to find that street parking. And so, as UH decides to develop more, maybe we could look at loosening some of their parking restrictions, because I know, man, if you didn't have a certain zone pass for a parking up
Right.
campus, you got tagged, or
Oh man.
you had to pay, like, I don't know what the cost is now for a parking pass, but I remember like during my time, I think it was about 150,
Mm.
almost up to 200 just to park by the Stan Sheriff Center in that lower
Wow.
structure. So I know it's just another
Oh yeah.
cost on top of that. So
Yeah. When you try to get parking in the community, it's almost a game. It's like,
yeah,
okay, I got 42 minutes, and it's gonna take 22 minutes to figure out something, right?
right.
When my wife and I first got married, we lived on Vancouver Drive. It's literally between the back gate of Punahou and um, like Manoa, UH Manoa. There was two stalls right in front of where we lived, and I'm telling you, man, if you got that, it was gold. It was like, oh my goodness, you're right here. It does seem to be a problem. I don't know if it's a problem deeper in the valley, but it's definitely seems to be a revolving thing that it's one of those things where you kind of gotta expect it because it's right there,
Yeah.
right? But I could see how people where this question would come up. Okay, you ready for a quick game?
Sure.
Okay, so we're gonna do a quick game, take a little break, and then we'll come back in. But we do these fun games because I think it's important to show just a little bit about you, your personality. But okay, so I'm gonna paint the picture. You ready? It's Friday and you have the day off. It's one of those teachers got the day off, and you're up earlier and you walk to your local coffee shop, Morning Glass, and you get in line. What's your order? What are we ordering and why?
Oh,
You can have food too if you
it's
want.
gonna sound real simple, but I'll just do straight black cold brew.
Really?
Yeah.
What? They have a million choices there. That's what you're going with?
They do. It's because, gosh, how many years has it been? It's been a while, but after me and my wife first got married, like her family was doing some kind of diet,
Oh,
and so be supportive, right? Okay, I'll do the diet too. So the diet cuts out sugar, cuts out
Oh my
certain
goodness.
carbs. I know.
oh my goodness.
But from then on, like I never used to like black coffee. I never used to drink it straight black. But what choice do I have after?
Yeah.
So from then on, it's just always been cold brew iced coffee, straight black.
Straight black.
Straight black, yeah. Even like at the Coffee Bean at Manoa Marketplace, I have the coupon,
Yeah.
the stamp card, and I just give it to her. Oh, what would you like? Oh, just the biggest iced coffee you can. It's like,
you mean when you fill up the stamps and then now you can get
you
anything free?
Correct. And it's just like, no,
Oh
no,
my
I
goodness.
just drink the.
This is what we do next time. You call me, I'll buy your black coffee, then I'll go get the super expensive Philly
That's
thing.
fine. We'll switch, man. We'll switch. That's totally fine. But yeah.
They say that like your coffee order says a lot about you. What do you think black cold brew says about you?
I don't know, man. Hopefully not as black as that coffee. It's just,
I worked at Starbucks for a little while, and there's always that saying, "I haven't had my coffee yet. That's why I'm so grumpy." Listen, everyone that walks to a coffee shop hasn't had their coffee yet,
Yeah.
so everyone is grumpy, and you learn so much. You're like, man, well, that person was really happy with all coffee. Those are the people that you're like, I really like that person. But yeah, awesome. Hey, listen, you're attending to our podcast here, Sit Down Hawaii. We're glad that you're here. Do me a favor, share this with somebody, hopefully in the community, family, friend member. Also, leave a comment below because I'm going to tag you in, and we kind of want to get this conversation going. We do have our Discord. We do have all these things for you, but go ahead and share. And then also, don't forget, November 5th is election. Maybe you've got your ballots and you're thinking, who do I want to support? Well, we hope that you're listening and that you're making a good decision right now, that you're getting to hear all sides. But more than that, you're really exercising your right to vote because your voice does matter. We're going to take a quick break. We're going to get back and we're going to have a good time. Thank you. Hey, hope you're having a good time on the podcast. Wanted to take a quick break to bring today's sponsor. Today's sponsor is Sweet Life Tea. It's a tea that helps people get through anxiety. Listen, I have anxiety flying, I have anxiety kind of in a lot of areas. And it was something that was affecting me. And so I found this tea. It has organic, natural, vegan, non-GMO ingredients that when you put them all together, it just helped me relax. So there's things like chamomile, licorice root, lavender, and I felt like I wanted to bring you something that helped me. So if you're struggling with anxiety and you just need something to kind of relax that's organic, go ahead and go to sweetlifetea.com. Put in the code SitDownHawaii for 10% off. Okay, looking forward to the rest of the podcast. Hey everyone, welcome back to Sit Down Hawaii podcast. I'm Josh. My guest is Jeffrey Imamura. Thank you so much for being here. Again, you're probably listening to this because you're a part of District 22, and that is Manoa. And we want to encourage you to go ahead, share this with someone, a family member, a friend. Go ahead and let them know, hey, we're talking about issues that are pertinent to you. Right? Awesome. If you don't know this, go ahead and Civil Beat did a really good job of diving deep into policy, and they did it for everybody, right? They did it for you. They did it just for everyone who's running. And so if you really want to get down into the details, go ahead and go there because they break it down and they do their thing. What we're doing today is we're having a conversation. We're not getting super crazy into bills and this and that. What we're doing is we're just talking about the things that you wanted to talk about. So that's been really good. I want to jump right in. First of all, you say that you got a music degree.
yeah.
Oh, what instruments can you play? And list them out, man. Like just don't be bold, brother. Don't be like I kind of play. Like we want to know. What do you play? What do you jam?
My main instrument that I went to school for is saxophone. So any and all, I guess, soprano, alto, tenor, baritone. They made us take classes, so I can do flute, clarinet, oboe. One semester I did bassoon. One semester I did oboe.
Wow.
They make you take brass. So
They said that bassoon is pretty difficult, huh?
It's crazy.
Yeah, I don't even know how to function that thing.
And then brass, you trumpet,
Yeah.
trombone, baritone, tuba.
Do you find that they all kind of interrelate, like just how you make a sound? Does that really work that way?
Yeah, it does.
Yeah.
That's kind of how I got by a little bit, just not knowing the finer things, but for a playing test for a college course, you kind of make it work.
Crazy. I'm guessing you probably can sight read pretty well.
I wouldn't quiz me now.
Yeah, I say that all the time. Yeah, I say it all the time. This is something we both have in common. We're both musicians. That saxophone, when I think of just the broader orchestra or band, that's always the sexy guy, bro. It's always like that dude. You got like the first chair violin. It's never the oboe. Ever. Sorry if you play oboe. Don't get upset at me. It is what it is. Go blame somebody else. We're having a good time here. I do appreciate you being here, giving your time. I think the people of Manoa is gonna get some insight. And with that, let's jump back in.
Sure.
Sounds good. All right. So we're gonna go into climate change. Now, whether you believe it's real or not, we've had guests flat out say this is a hoax, and we went down that line. But basically, this is what we've seen: that there is flooding in Manoa. That's increased by 15% over the last decade, right? And so, given that Manoa has some vulnerabilities to flooding and other climate impacts, and I'll keep that general. You can say winds, you can talk about hurricanes, anything you really choose. What plans do you have to improve the district's resilience and environmental sustainability?
Sure. I know climate change is like one of those things. A big part of it is honestly it's cleaning up the more foresty areas, I guess if you could say it that way. A lot of it is cutting down some of the excess growth that is there in Manoa. And it's green, it's beautiful, it's wet all the time, so it's easy for things to get overgrown. So I think a lot of it is having, crews go through and, trim, not tear down, not cut away, but just trim, branches, get rid of some of the weeds and the vines that have like cropped up over drainage pipes and things like that. And we've seen that happen in, other places like New Valley. New Valley had a big flooding incident that happened, but it's because, part of the drainage was just blocked by overgrowth and other things. So, going through Manoa, figuring out the to put it loosely, I guess like the irrigation type thing where water's going to flow that's easily accessible to, the drainage pipes or the canals that help funnel the water out of Manoa would be probably priority number one. Um, you know, we don't have a set kind of backup power either, and not just Manoa, but citywide on Oahu, and I'm sure statewide, we're struggling through some of the transition between green energy versus the old school coal, gas, fossil fuel energy. And I'm not a deniist, I guess, is what people say. Like they're climate deniers. I think that the climate is changing, and I think that we should have alternatives ready. But at the same time, too, we shouldn't forsake the old stuff when we're not ready. And my honest opinion is we're not ready. So having both, like they just, or within the last 2 years, 3 years, I think they shut down the coal power plant, and then all of a sudden we're having issues with power. And just at the start of August or towards the end of summer, they had the Hiko came out with, hey, we got to do rolling blackouts. This neighborhood is going to lose power for this time and this power in this neighborhood. And that's not right, especially in Manoa where it's families, it's multi-generational homes. It's taking care of, your grandma and grandpa, or even your great grandma and grandpa, right? Maybe they have needs or a machine or something that they need in order that requires power. And, so it's just that kind of balance, I think, moving forward.
Yeah. Balance seems, in an ideal world, that'd be great. What do you see in Manoa as you live there, you walk around? Is there anything that sticks out to you when it comes to sustainability? I'll give an example. I live in Ho'opili. It's hot. Let me just put that short. There's no morning rains there. It is just hot. And if you don't have a solar panel in your house, like you're missing a crazy opportunity, because I think the sun just likes to beam all of its heat right on our house. Not even anyone else's house. My house specifically, just through the window in my face. What do you see? What are some opportunities that are out there in your opinion, that you're saying we should rely on what we currently have, but we should also be thinking about moving forward? What does that look like?
Right. I think, everybody's gone solar, right, to a degree. And Manoa, it's great because you get a certain amount of sun and then that's it, right? Yeah. It's just cloudy, it's overcast, it's rain. And so it's, upgrading our infrastructure in Manoa. Like some of those houses have been around for over 100 years.
Yeah.
And, with all the new developments happening towards UH and new houses that are cropping up or being renovated in Manoa that require more demand, right? We have to take a step back and look at assessing just can the system handle like what's going on. And maybe we need to create a substation or a power bank somewhere in the valley that can help when there's a power outage. Like, okay, we can rely on this backup to help keep Manoa on. Um, but outside of we don't really have like a set water source. I mean, there's Manoa Park and Manoa Falls, but we're not going to tap that at all.
Mm.
Like that's its own sacred place, and people come from everywhere to hike Manoa and
Yeah.
see the falls and all that kind of stuff. So looking at hydropower, that's not going to work.
Mm.
Wind power, that's not going to work either because
Mm-hmm.
nobody wants that windmill in their backyard. So it's just relying maybe on having that power bank set up somewhere, not like in the middle of Manoa Park. That's not
Yeah.
it, but
Yeah.
somewhere that's out of the way but accessible.
Yeah. Is this something that you're thinking is a need now, or where are we at with this? Right. So I'll give an example. We look at what's going on, what had happened in Florida.
Mhm.
You look at the Maui wildfires. You see what's going on, and you're not expecting disasters to happen, but in this position, I would assume we've got to think about the things that other people may not want to think of. So, what does this look like in terms of priority to you? And in your opinion, what has been done in the community? Are we even addressing this at the moment? What does that look like?
As a priority, I think it's up to each individual in each household to take care. And we can provide the resources. I think like the information isn't the challenge. It's more about, okay, how do we help people get those kinds of supplies? How do we make
Mm.
sure, hey, by the way, you need this much, of food or water. This is,
Mhm.
what you need for medicine, your checklist. Make sure you have all of your documents in a secure place. Speaking of the fires and things like that, my wife brought this up because she saw it on social media where people are buying fireproof safes and
Mm.
things like that, so that all of your documents can fit in that safe. And let's say the worst case happens and there's a fire or flooding or anything like that, that safe's not going to go anywhere. But all of your marriage certificate, birth certificates, medical
Mm.
records, it's safe and secure. And so maybe that's an expansion of information for the people of Manoa. You know, Outside of that, just being prepared. I know it's tough because everything is really expensive.
Of course, yeah.
For us, I know we bought those emergency supply kits, the food, almost like MREs.
Yeah.
So we bought a case of that just on the off chance, and
Mhm.
we're fortunate to not be in potentially dangerous area for flooding or anything like that. But it's always nice to have something
Yeah.
just at the ready.
Yeah, you brought up some homes that are 100 years old, right? And that's we're kind of talking about this in the break. You know, Manoa's gorgeous. Some of these homes, I'm telling you, it's like out of a movie. You're like, where did that home come from? It's always like a beautiful corner lot, and you're like, man, that thing has been there for a very long time, and maybe it dates back to plantation or whatever that may be. Um, Manoa does have its own character and characteristics. There's one thing that I recall specifically about Manoa is there's this smell in Manoa. Call it whatever you want, and it probably has to do with rain, right? It's because there's like showers or whatnot. There's a Manoa smell. I don't know how to explain it. I also know that there are songs, Olala Hawaii, some Hawaiian stuff that even call that out. That there's this smell. Whether you love that or not, there's definitely something there. And so I want to kind of bring in a little bit of the community preservation and the balance between that and development. And this is our last question today. Then we're going to do one last fun thing. I hope you're having a good time out there because I am. Let's go into it. So with increased development, there are some newer things out in, UH Manoa just built a new amazing building out there. So with increased development in surrounding areas, residents are concerned about preserving the cultural and historical identity of Manoa. How will you ensure that future development in Manoa respects the community's historical and cultural identity while accommodating new growth?
Mm.
Yeah.
I think that it's all about the people. The
Mm.
people make the culture. People decide what is important historically. So I think that passing down traditions, passing down knowledge and history of where you grew up is super important, right? When you pass it down to, um, from your grandparents to your parents to you to your kids to their kids after that, right? That's how that kind of cultural sustainability happens, right? If we're talking
Mm.
about more like the neighborhood, oh, I don't want my neighborhood to change. I don't want this to happen.
Mhm.
That's a broader question because, you know, um, progress is going to happen and, change is going to happen. And part of it is, adjusting to the times, right? Manoa has its charm because of its history. Manoa has its charm because of its culture. And we can't throw the baby out with the bathwater, right? I
Mm.
think, as we develop, as we look towards increased housing for Manoa residents, we should maybe take a look at restoring or using the old style of housing from 60s, 70s, and 80s, that kind of rustic charm look that those kinds of houses like. And me personally, I actually like
Oh,
that
yeah.
kind of look a little bit more now. When I was
Mhm.
younger, I thought, oh, modern, flat, all
Yeah.
that kind of sleek thing. But when I look more so at, like, how do I want my son to grow up? I want
Mhm.
that big yard. I want that front porch patio thing going on. And that
Yeah.
only comes through like seeing the older houses and the styling
Right.
that they have. So, working with developers, let's say, or private citizens who want to build their home in Manoa, maybe it's just a, hey, this is what it used to be like. You know, does
Yeah.
any of this kind of style on the outside kind of resonate
Mhm.
with you, or would you like to keep a certain aspect of it so that Manoa can stay Manoa? And I think that kind of partnership helps to preserve and not just preserve, but share that identity with the new people who are coming in, or even people from not Manoa, right? If you're
Mhm.
gonna move into Manoa from Mililani or from the North Shore, from Kapolei,
Mhm.
right? It's okay. This is how it is here in this little pocket. So let's respect that and honor that and move forward that way.
Yeah, I think there are communities. I mean, I think of like Haleiwa one, right, where things come in and there's a look and there's a feel, and the community has been very vocal. This is what we want, right? I think even the McDonald's there looks like something that's older, and rightfully so. I live in Ho'opili, and there's a whole section that's just the rebuilds are all they're new builds, but they look like old like plantation homes, right? And so I think there is a space there. We've kind of hit all of our topics, and maybe you have more questions and you want to contact him directly. But I want to give you a second to just talk about why you, why you in this season.
Mhm.
And to be really fair, this is something we've been asking everybody. But if Andrew was here as well, I would ask the exact same
Right.
question. So why you? If you're listening, why should someone consider you for this next season?
Sure,
Yeah.
sure. My whole approach is just that I'm just like everybody else. I'm not a superstar. Um, I'm just boots on the ground. That's the way that I look at myself. Just I go to work, come home, play with my kid, go to
Mhm.
sleep, rinse and repeat for the next day. And it's not anything glamorous. And I don't think that, people have this disconnect between like politicians or people that are supposed to represent them. And, that shouldn't happen, right? People who are in positions of the government who are duly elected, they're supposed to be your voice for everybody else, right? So I represent or potentially could represent the small community of Manoa to the rest of the state and share what Manoa is concerned about to the rest of the state. And there's overlap. I guarantee there's overlap. We struggle with housing. There's a homelessness issue that's going on. There's public safety. Those concerns aren't exclusive to Manoa. It's just because Manoa is secluded in a way, it just took longer to get there, right? So we want to
Mhm.
address those problems now. And, you know, I live in an area that is just like everybody else, and so I understand, like, man, groceries are really expensive.
Mhm.
I understand that, and I'm a teacher. It's not, you know, we're not driving down in a Benz or anything like that. So I just feel like we need regular people to be in politics and to be in government because it's not supposed to be complicated.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's hopefully the goal of this podcast is to just bring clarity. Okay. So we do this thing where we ask one last question. We and I'm just gonna pull it up. We put your profile. We put all of the topics, the last 5 questions we asked, and then we also put the demographic of Manoa, right? All into one thing into ChatGPT. And we asked ChatGPT to ask you one question that's going to give you, the listeners, the best insight to who you are. Okay. So I'm just going to read it word for word what it is. And honestly, I don't even really know it because we did it. Okay. Based on your platform and background from your website, Garrett, Garrett, it's not even you. Garrett.
It's ChatGPT right there.
Yeah,
folks.
that's a total lie. Hang on. We're gonna have to cut this, Jordan. Sorry, and I'm gonna have to prep it one more time. Shoot. Oh, you know what? I see what it did. You know what's interesting? This is crazy. So we did Garrett Shimizu before you,
Okay.
and your website is, I think it's.
Shouldn't be the same.
Oh no, it's not. No, this is just completely wrong. Hang on one second. Sorry.
No.
Let me. I don't want to ask you the wrong question.
Nah, I'll take the wrong question too, Nan.
Okay, wait.
Yeah, nothing.
Sorry, bro. I'm gonna have to. I was gonna ask him the question for Garrett, and this is not even Garrett. We'll have to edit that, but I'll preface it. Okay, don't look. Okay, This is just. Okay. And then I do have. You okay with time?
Yeah.
I do have the question here, but I don't have it there. So I'm gonna let it do its thing anyway.
Yeah.
I should have just read it here.
It's okay.
What a dummy. So Jeff for Hawaii. Yeah.
It's my. Oh, I'm surprised. Oh, no, I guess it's still there.
Oh, it's pretty much. Don't read.
Oh,
This
sorry,
is pretty
sorry,
much
sorry.
the same.
I thought you had
This
the
is
website.
literally the same question. This is spooky, dude. This is so spooky. Okay, I'm gonna read this one. Can I go right into it? Okay, cool. Okay, so we do one last question, and what we do is we take your background, we take the questions that we've asked, then we put the demographic of you, the listener of Manoa, and we put it all together in ChatGPT, and we ask ChatGPT to ask you one question that would give you, the listener, insight. So this is what ChatGPT had, okay? I'm going to read it. I have it here and I have it here, but let's go ahead. So it says, Jeffrey, says ChatGPT, you've spoken passionately about standing up for individual rights and pushing back against mandates that affected many during the pandemic. How do you plan to ensure that future public health policies in Hawaii respect both individual freedoms and the collective safety of your community?
Man, if you had asked me that 2 years ago, oh man,
Yeah.
I'd be like, the individual is the most important because individuals that come together form the community, and from the community we get societies, right? So by taking away the individual, we lose that sense of that melting pot, so to speak. And so, during COVID and when we had to do this, or they told you had to do that kind of stuff, it's not fair. And some people might argue that, oh, but it was for the greater good or for the health of everybody. Yeah, but it wasn't healthy for individuals to do that and make that choice. And, you know, our family, my wife and I were directly affected because we took a stance. And, we paid a price at the time that was really tough, really tough, not only for us uh, as people, but for our jobs and our careers. It was tough for, you know, seeing our friends and family, but again, respect the individual, right? Everybody's got to make their own decisions. And that's where, um, I stand in something like this. We have to respect the individual decisions that people make, right? And forcing them to do something that's no better than, I don't know, that's not the American government. That's not a civil government. That's a dictatorship, an authoritative dictatorship kind of a
Uh,
thing where, so honestly, it would just be not jumping the gun on something that sounds scary or seems scary. And like, we have to take the time to, number one, as decision makers, be informed. And then number
mhm.
two, share that information with everybody else, right? Let everybody else make their decision, right? And we don't like the consequences, or we don't like the results, right? We don't like it when somebody chooses to drink and drive and cause an accident. We hate that, right? We have laws against that, right? But it doesn't, you know, stop it from happening necessarily, right? But when you're taking away somebody's livelihood or somebody's freedom in a way to go to the store, to work, you know, that's where it just becomes too much. And so finding, I don't know, I thought long and hard about it at the time, and I was really passionate and angry.
Right.
But, now that it's taken aback a little bit, making sure that the powers that be are in check, whether that means that emergency powers or emergency proclamations have to be regulated by the legislature, so it's not a unilateral thing necessarily. There are some situations, like granted, like the governor's got to make his decision because this thing is happening right now. We cannot wait for a council or a
Mhm.
meeting, right? But when we look at something that's long term, like COVID was long term, 2-3 years, right? And the mandate stayed there for that long, but having, again, a check and a balance for that comes from the legislature, comes from the people who listen to you or listen to your representatives and say, this isn't right, we don't think this. And having your representative, your senator voicing that, hey, my community doesn't think this is right. And finding that common ground, I guess, off the top of my head.
Yeah. Yeah.
ChatGPT.
Yeah. ChatGPT is tricky. Thank you so much for being here. I really do appreciate it. And you've spoken about your own personal choice and your personal right, and I want to use that as a closing segue
Sure.
to encourage you. You get your choice. You get your right to volunteer, or not to volunteer. You get your choice to put your stamp and vote. Again, I want to encourage you. November 5th, get out there, make a decision. Your voice does matter. And I want you to know that there is power in your voice. So I'm very thankful, very thank you for this opportunity. And I look forward to seeing you in other podcasts. Again, we're just doing politics right now because that's a pressing issue in Hawaii at the moment. But we have a bunch of amazing conversations that we have planned for you, and I hope that you would follow us. So again, we're Sit Down Hawaii. I'm Josh, and I look forward to seeing you soon. Aloha. Ho! Okay. District 22 Manoa. Look, Jeffrey's cool. That's for sure. Jeff. I think he's a pretty down to earth guy. It didn't seem to me like he had like a sharpness towards his competitor. I think he is running because he really thinks that there can be some changes. More so, I think that he feels that he can represent Manoa better because he's an everyday guy. And I'm not too sure about that, but I do think that he is a good guy. And I could see that he's probably a really good teacher. He's got patience. And he does take a second to really listen to the questions before he answers. And that's something pretty unique because most of these that I do, I've asked questions and they go right into it, like boom, almost like it's pre rehearsed. He takes a second, he pauses, he thinks about it, and then he answers. I do wish that the incumbent did show up, because I think there might have been a pretty stark difference. But what we did get through Jeff was he cares about the community that he is from Manoa. He didn't even need to know the menu. He knew exactly what he wanted. Um, and I think he's a good option. Um, no endorsements, but I think he's a good person. So it really depends on what you're looking for, Manoa. Other than that, I gotta tell you, I can't wait to go to that coffee shop. What was it, Morning Glass? Yeah, Morning Glass rocks. I don't know about cold brew, but I can tell you right now, they got some bomb food. So, anyway, that's what I got. Take care. Aloha.